All right, everyone, settle in. We've got a lot to get through, and frankly, we don't have a moment to spare. Welcome to the ministry. What we're dealing with this week, it's not just diplomacy, this is crisis management on a global scale.
And no, that's not an exaggeration. Just look around this room. You are now the team that's been tasked with mediating a standoff that has pushed two major world powers right to the edge of all-out war. The pressure is on, the stakes couldn't be higher, and our role in all of this is absolutely critical.
Make no mistake, what is happening just down the hall is historic. For decades, these two countries have only talked through back channels, if they've talked at all. Today, right here in Islamabad, they're sitting across from each other. We made this happen. We built this space for dialogue right in the middle of a shooting war. And now, the really hard part begins. To get what we're up against, you have to know how we got here in the first place. Okay, so let's break it down. The road to Islamabad was paved with threats and wreckage. It all happened so fast, and frankly, it was terrifying. It all kicked off on February 28th with this massive air campaign. Iran's response? It was immediate, and it was powerful. They shut down the Strait of Hormuz, basically choking off one of the most important arteries for global trade. From there, the rhetoric just got uglier. President Trump wasn't talking about negotiations. He was demanding surrender. By the time we hit early April, the threats were, well, apocalyptic. This was the firestorm we had to walk into. And you have to understand, this wasn't some distant conflict. When the Strait of Hormuz closed, it sent shockwaves through the entire global economy. A huge chunk of the world's oil supply just stopped. The world was screaming for a solution, and that's when we raised our hand. So our biggest challenge wasn't just getting them to stop shooting, it was trying to bridge a massive gap. The two sides didn't just have different demands, they were working from completely different blueprints for what peace should even look like.
I mean, look at the distance between their starting points. It's huge. The US comes in wanting this phased, short-term ceasefire. Their main goals? Reopen the strait and put limits on Iran's nuclear program. Iran, though, they came to the table with a totally different list. An open-ended ceasefire, full payment for war damages, lifting all sanctions, and getting formal recognition of their control over the strait. These aren't just minor disagreements. It's like they're speaking two different languages. And if that wasn't tricky enough,
We found something, a critical difference in the wording, something that could have blown up this whole thing before it even got started. This is where you really see that the devil is in the details.
So here's the kicker. The original Farsi version of Iran's proposal had this very specific phrase, acceptance of enrichment, for their nuclear program. But in the English translations that were handed out to us and to the media, that phrase was just gone. Now, was that a negotiation tactic? A simple oversight? Honestly, it didn't matter. It created this huge trust issue and a major roadblock on one of the most sensitive topics imaginable.
So faced with all of this, the fighting, the impossible demands, the language games, we knew we couldn't just be hosts. We had to be architects. We needed a clear, step-by-step game plan to pull everyone back from the brink. Our approach had to be methodical. We started with the basics, shuttle diplomacy, flying back and forth carrying proposals, building just a tiny bit of trust. That laid the groundwork for step 2, getting them to agree to a fragile 2-week ceasefire. It wasn't much, but it was just enough breathing room to pull off step 3, getting both delegations here, to this city, to finally talk face-to-face. But bringing them here took more than just a simple invitation. We had to give them an ironclad guarantee that they would be safe. You can't ask delegations to travel through a war zone on a simple promise. This was a guarantee Pakistan made, and it was a guarantee we backed up with our own military assets. We put our Air Force in the sky. I'm talking about our JF-17s and F-16s flying escort missions. We literally created a protective air corridor over the Persian Gulf to get the Iranian delegation here safely. This wasn't just about logistics, it was a powerful signal that Pakistan was fully committed to this process and had the muscle to back it up. But of course, the ink was barely dry on that temporary ceasefire agreement before it came under serious, immediate threat. The whole thing was tested from the very first hour. And the single biggest point of conflict was Lebanon. Was it part of the ceasefire deal or not? Well, the answer completely depended on who you asked, and that disagreement nearly lit the whole thing on fire. The contradiction was instant, and it was public. Our own Prime Minister stated clearly that the ceasefire was comprehensive. It covered all fronts. But then, almost immediately, Israel and the United States came out and said, nope, the ceasefire does not include Lebanon. This wasn't some small misunderstanding. It was a fundamental clash over what had actually been agreed to. And this wasn't just a war of words. The consequences were immediate. Israel launched one of its biggest waves of airstrikes on Lebanon since the whole conflict started. So whether Lebanon was technically in the deal or not, these attacks just blew the spirit of de-escalation to pieces and created a massive crisis for us as mediators. The fallout was exactly what you'd expect. Tehran threatened to walk away from the table. The IRGC started issuing warnings. And, critically, shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, which was supposed to be starting up again, was halted. Our teams were up all night, working the phones with Tehran, basically begging them not to retaliate and to stay in the talks. We barely, and I mean barely, held it all together. Which brings us to right now, today. The talks are still going, but we are all walking a diplomatic tightrope. Every single word, every move is loaded with risk. The good news, the atmosphere in the room is apparently congenial, which, frankly, is a miracle. But being polite doesn't solve deep-seated policy problems. Our sources are confirming that unreasonable demands and significant differences are still holding everything up. So the mood is okay, but the substance? We're at a stalemate. The Iranian ambassador to Pakistan, Reza Amiri Magdan, he put it perfectly. He said, the talks have reached a critical, sensitive stage. This is that moment. This is where a deal either gets made or the whole thing falls apart. It could tip either way. But there is one small glimmer of hope. We're getting some whispers, unconfirmed for now, that Washington might be willing to unfreeze some of Iran's assets. This has been a key demand from Tehran since day one. If it's true, it could be the key that unlocks progress on everything else. But right now, it's just a maybe. So, that is where we are. The talks are happening under our roof, and the whole world is holding its breath. Our job, your job, is to keep both sides on that tightrope, to nudge them forward inch by inch, and to make sure that one false move doesn't send the entire region, maybe even the world, falling back into the abyss. The next 24 hours are everything. Now let's get to work.